Hey, welcome to the Backyard Professor Chess videos. You guys would laugh yourself silly if you watched me trying to record this game. I've messed up twice now, so I'm going to mark off each one as I do this. Oh man, it's been heck trying to get this recorded. That's what happens when you get to be old farts, you know. Look what you have to look forward to. Bobby here plays a Baron versus Baron in a Ruy Lopez. Now, of course, Fischer was a mammoth king pawn opener. So he's going to know the Ruy Lopez, right? And so he got really, really good with the Ruy Lopez. And the last I checked is he knew it up to 100 quadrillion variations. Yeah, I counted them. I'm not kidding. He was something else. With this Ruy Lopez, and his opponents had to study up on the Ruy Lopez. So in his later games, he had some fabulous games with the Ruy. Let's see what he does with this one. They are developing properly. This is just a typical Ruy Lopez at this point. Rook to the file, of course, and now you tickle the bishop once again. You don't want to leave that bishop there for too long. You're eventually going to need to keep that knight. So you want to take the bishop out. Well, take him at least away. Bumps down, and now d6 because black properly wants to defend his center. Yes, and then this is so typical. You push the c3 because you don't want to lose this bishop when more and more power comes on the queen side. The Ruy Lopez naturally presents black with an opportunity to play on the queen side, and so that's what he does. Whenever you play the Ruy Lopez with black, you know that. You go to the queen side. You've got your pawn push, you've got your space. When you do a pawn push, you want to have the powers backing up the pawns, of course. So, and when he does this, what this does, he goes ahead and castles, is it gives the bishop an escape hatch. And now h3 so that he stops the bishop from here. And knight a5. See, here we go. He's going to try to back. The bishop is pinning the f pawn. Now the f pawn can't move just yet. But that angle, you don't want to let that bishop stay on that diagonal if you can at all help it. And now here comes the queenside push. So in a Ruy Lopez, truly, you want to play on the queen side. That's where most of your space is. You'll have your pieces developed on this side better, which back up the pawns so that you can continue using the pawns as your battering rams. The other advantage, this is a double whammy move. Not only does it give your bishop an escape hatch, it also supports your own center when you push up to challenge the center. And you always want to challenge the center like this. Now, just because there is tension here doesn't mean you immediately sorry, I got a frog in my throat. Doesn't mean you immediately have to take a pawn. And in fact, we'll see that they don't immediately do what is called release the pressure in the center at all. And now the knight has done the job of pushing the bishop back. Now, it's very rare, it's unlikely, if they're just going to push the bishop back up, because now this pawn prevents that, right? So what you want to do instead is d takes c5. And d takes c5. Correctamundo. Now, what has happened here is we have opened up the file. And it's a center file. So that's a pretty good file. No one has it yet, but it's a pretty good file. Now, Bobby is going to rearrange his pieces. Now you say, well, wait a minute. We're still in the opening. You said in the past, don't move each piece more than once. As a general rule, yes, but every rule is made to be broken. And this makes beautiful sense because with the extra space on the queen side, and he does have very good piece support for his pawns. The queen's in here. You can bring the bishop up. The rook is supporting. So he really does have a good setup for queen side, so it makes sense. There's nothing coming crashing through the center. Neither king is in danger. There is a central file to be taken eventually, the D file, by one of the players. But it makes sense if your opponent is going to go on one wing, you go on the other. So this looks like Fischer is attempting to build up his king side, right? And that would be a true story. Notice what his opponent is doing. His opponent is continuing to bring out pieces. Again, support on that queen side with both bishops, a knight, a queen, and a rook. This is a very excellent queen side setup. Fischer is not going to be outdone. He will rearrange the knight. And you say, well, he's had 1, 2, 3 knight moves. True, he's had 3 knight moves. There is no imminent attack. There's no unseen tactics, etc. So it's okay on a somewhat slow opening Ruy Lopez to get your pieces arranged first before either attacking or defending. Notice Fischer didn't go to here with the knight because that just blocks in your own pawns. And you need those pawns to be out front, backed by the pieces. And you say, well, it's still an extra move. That's right, it is an extra move, but this one's much better. So we see Fischer advancing, and now, yep, here we go. Okay, so his opponent is the first one to grab that central open file, and he's tickling the queen. Of course, Fischer is not going to lose his queen. This isn't about attacking the queen, but he's giving every indication here that he wants to double the rooks on the D file. So Black wants to own the D file, and this makes sense as well because on his queen side, he has a wonderful development. Everything looks coordinated. He's got the space to put his pieces in the right places. Why not have a file deep into Fischer's territory with the queen side? That makes beautiful sense why he wants to double those rooks. That's good chess. And now Fischer will go knight g5. So this is an important thing here. Why is Fischer moving so many of the pieces that he has already moved instead of developing? Number one, he's not, development is a temporary thing, right? So yes, he's a little behind in development. However, he still has wonderful influence. Yes, his bishop's hitting granite at this point, but he's not as far behind. The queen comes out over both directions. She is keeping her eye on the queen side. So it's not like he's in trouble. He's just a little behind on development. So he's going to try something very important because he knows his opponent wants that file. Now, he's not fighting for the file just yet. But what he is going to do is he's going to win the minor pieces war. Or at least he's going to create a very interesting imbalance with the minor pieces. Now, with that move, Fischer saddles his opponent with both knights, while he himself keeps both bishops. That tells you something about the strategies of each player. Fischer, owning the long-range bishops, is going to want to open up the chessboard. He will want to exchange pawns eventually, because that builds power into his knights, while at the same time it makes, or his bishops, it makes his opponent's knights more limited in strength because they're a short range piece. So conversely, you know what black pieces are going to do. He's going to want to keep pieces and pawns on the board so that he can give his knights really good outposts. Notice what this h3 is doing here now. It is preventing the knight from advancing. You say, well, he moved a king pawn up, so it creates weaknesses around the king. It actually limits the knight even further. So Fischer is somewhat cramping his opponent. Don't take that real too literal. That isn't his intention. But you can see it's cramped. And now Fischer bumps the pawn. Now watch the effect of this. This is so remarkably interesting. And his opponent advances the pawn. So here comes the queen side of the black pieces. Watch the effect of that pawn thrust on the entire queen side here. It's really remarkable. He takes the pawn returns. Yes. Fischer's got an open file. And they say, yeah, but it's not as powerful as the central open file. Actually, it's better. Rather than fighting for the file, Fischer opened up one of his own. But observe what the black file has. Not much. This square is protected. This square is protected. This square is protected. This square is protected. And this square is protected. So 2/3 of this file is useless for right now. So that's one reason, among many, why black is not coming at Fischer hard and sassy, because he's not yet developed well enough. Fischer has done excellent preventative maintenance on his opponent's file, while he has pretty much full range on his. Let's keep watching. This gets really interesting. Now, Fischer does something weird. B3. If in order to fuller develop, he should have done this. Let's get some pieces off the board. You've got both bishops. Open up this chessboard a little bit. But he didn't. He's trying to open it here on the queen side. It's probably the slow way to do it. But then his opponent also does something interesting. Now, he does want to further get into the territory and open up that D file, but this wasn't the right way to do it. So, of course, he's going, and you say, that's crazy. He just gave him a knight. No, hold on. E takes D4. That may not be what he did. Because now, rather than moving the knight, because these 3 pawns can become wickedly dangerous, this guy going to here has a nasty fork on the queen and bishop. So what he wants to do is get rid of this pawn in that wonderful advanced pawn chain. Notice how the pawns are disappearing out of the center of this board, increasing the strength of Fischer's bishops. This is really interesting how Fischer did this. So he does exchange the knights, and where is it? Oh, here, this one. Duh. The bishop takes e3. So now we have b takes c4. So black, remember how glorious black's queenside was looking just a few minutes ago. It's like magic. Poof, it's gone. Also notice Fischer has really dramatically opened up the chessboard for his bishops. This is a key thing we need to understand in this game. He deliberately set up by exchanging a knight, and now he makes the board better for his two minor pieces. And now they truly are stronger than black's minor pieces. That's a huge part of the battle in chess. He also saddles black with an isolated pawn. So that becomes a target, and that means black has to babysit that pawn. So this will be real interesting to see what happens. So notice how Fischer also gets to utilize his open file, whereas this open file is still entirely useless. Isn't that fascinating? So Fischer has done something truly remarkable here. He's going to push the pawn to e5, and now the bishop will come to b6. Look at this skewer. Is that not beautiful, right? You go, ouch. Queen bumps down. Watch what Fischer does at this point. He comes down. Oh, I wish that would open. To a4. He doesn't take the rook. And the rook comes to d2. Now, at last, he can utilize that open file. Does it help him? No, it does not, because Fischer goes check. See, the isolated pawn is a target, and he took the target. And the queen will exchange. Queen takes c4, and the rook will take c4, and the rook will go to b8, target, finding the target. The bishop will go to e3. Fischer says, okay, I'm going to find my target. And the rook comes back to d7. Now look at the dynamics of this chessboard. Because he has a bad bishop, and that pawn is hitting concrete because it's the same color as the bishop. So Fischer has given him a slower minor piece and a bad bishop. Now, a bad bishop is just a title, so to speak. This bishop is still very, very useful. It can come out here and create all kinds of havoc over here. Right, maybe not through the center. So a bad bishop doesn't necessarily mean a weak bishop, but in many cases it is so. It's definitely limited, like Fischer's bad bishop, and yet Fischer has another bishop. So let's see how this works out. Rook will come to a1, putting his second rook into this game, and then rook at b comes to b7. He's going to guard his second rank. You see what's happening. there's a potential back rank mate coming up. You must keep your eye open for the back rank checkmates. Now, that wouldn't be checkmate any more than that would be checkmate. But realize that he's got a bishop here that can seal the king off. You see how this is starting to work. The coordination of a rook and a bishop is a vicious thing against a king on a back rank, just so we're aware of this. So Fischer goes to rook a5. Again, the utilization. Notice who got to use their open file and who didn't, more or less. Black did a little bit, but now white is really having fun on the open files, yes. And then the bishop comes to d6. And the rook comes to c6. He hits a target. And the bishop goes to b8. So again, I'm just pointing out the bishops of Fischer appear much stronger than the bishop and knight of his opponent. So Fischer's position, his rooks are much more dynamically and powerfully placed than the defensive posture of the black rooks. That's important to see. Fischer's setup is stronger here. He's going to be able to get the initiative just shortly. So he goes to rook bishop 6. And now it's obvious. It's obvious what he's doing. So he has to bump up. He is setting him up for a back rank checkmate. You don't want that. Fischer is also going to bump one of his pawns. And now the king simply already says, let's get rid of this idea of the back rank checkmate. And notice he's putting his king into the game. Because in the end game, kings are very useful. Yes? So the rook will take the b7. Let's exchange a pair of rooks. The rook will take the b7. Bobby is still in a better position. Notice what he does. Instead of continuing to pursue the exchange of pieces, now Bobby decides, okay, let's get the king in the game. This is great stuff, man. Now rook will come all the way to b2. Why not? It's a target, right? You go for the target. Bishop will go to d3. Rook will come to b4. King will come to f3. Notice how the king becomes a piece to cover the pawns so that Bobby can utilize all of his pieces as attack pieces. This is really nice how he does this. And now rook will come back to b2. And bishop will come to c4 check. And the king's going to come through to king g6, and now the rook will come to a6, pinning the knight to the king. Now that may or may not be significant, but notice the tactic of pinning the piece so that all black has is 2 pieces to maneuver, while white has 3 of them now. Notice also that he's been down here for a few plays. This one has been up into the field of action, putting the king over on the side of the board. Even though it's a bad bishop, it has played a major role here. So again, bad bishop doesn't necessarily mean weak. It's just really important for us to know that. So rook comes to a6, pinning the knight. Rook will come to b4, gaining a target. Keep him on his toes. Watch what Bobby does. Rook to c6. You notice he didn't move the bishop out of the way. He came off of his open file and came over to here instead, which is even a stronger position for his rook. Isn't that fun to see? It is indeed. So rook to a4. And now, look how Fischer is slowly advancing his pieces up to the black side. Bishop e6, rook will take e4, so he gets his central pawn. That doesn't necessarily concern Fischer, because now he puts the bishop here and it traps the rook. Is that not clever? Wow. The rook is now officially trapped. All he has to do is find a way to attack it, and he wins the game. He ups the game. So he knows, oops, I'm trapped. I've got to take something out. Rook takes e3. King takes e3. So now Fischer is in a dominant position, and bishop comes to a7 check to the king. And Fischer will bring his king over to f3. And now e4 check. So has black surprised Fischer? Now it looks like he's starting to put together a coordinated attack, right? And he's got a deadly pawn that's helping into that. Not a pass pawn yet, but it's certainly well advanced. So what's going on here? Has Fischer not been paying attention? Of course he has. That pawn's never going to make it in. Not ever. And then, the black bishop to d4. Notice how he's centralizing, because it's from the center out that you expand your power. Finally, he got him off that back row. That back row, he wasn't doing a lot. Now, that is a much better position for that black bishop. Wow. Is black going to do something significant here? Yes, he is. He's trying to win the game. Here comes Fischer. Notice how Fischer is putting his rook behind black. That's important. So he bumps his pawn, and Fischer's going to drop his bishop, and the bishop's going to go to b6. Target, not much else you can do. Notice how the knight has been stuck with watching after the pawn. So a piece guarding the isolated pawn has given Fischer two pieces to work with instead of mainly just one. That has played a role in this game. Bishop b3, bishop b6, I've got that. And now rook b7. He just says, I'm not the target, you are, right? And so the bishop will come back to c5. Now the bishop will come to c2. Look at this. Pinning the pawn to the king. That could be very dangerous. And in fact, his opponent knows it. So he gets the king off to the edge, and now target, of course. Bishop f8. Notice how he's put him in a complete corner. That is so interesting. Bishop to f8, and now rook to c4. And this is where he resigned. Bobby wins this Ruy Lopez. That was a wonderful game to show you the dynamics, in my opinion, the dynamics of the minor pieces. The rooks versus, the bishops versus the knights. And that knight always, throughout the course of the game, if you didn't notice, did not get involved in the struggle. He was too busy guarding stuff. Fischer had the long-term range pieces, both of them. And that is what made the difference in this game. So fun game to watch, you guys. I love this kind of stuff. So, thanks for watching the Backyard Professor Chess videos. More to come later on this week. Thank you. Appreciate you. Be good, do well, have fun, smile, and make lots of friends. Don't forget Steve Hartman coming up Friday night on the road, the best part of the news channel. So I will catch up to you guys next time. I appreciate everything you do for me. I appreciate you being in the audience, and it's fun learning chess with you.